here we are, 2019, a year later, since the first time that I rode the MS 150 in 2018. So let me just run with it because last year I didn't seem to have this much hesitation going into it with my videos. And this year I've clearly procrastinated. And I needed to start today, March 5th, 2019, because that date is very significant for me. So let me start by saying that my name is Danielle Koplinski. I'm 31 years old and I live in Houston, Texas. March 5th, 2016, at 9:30 a.m., Methodist Hospital, the medical center here in Houston, my doctor came into my room to confirm that I, in fact, had the beginning stages of multiple sclerosis. So now we're here 3 years later. A lot has changed, a lot hasn't changed. And March being Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month, I decided to start my fundraising for the MS 150 this month, and on this day particularly because this is my 3-year anniversary being diagnosed. Before I can say anything else and before I can add on to all of this stuff, one thing is I realized last year I really need to keep my videos a lot shorter because I want you to get through the whole thing. And number two, this year I've had a lot more hesitation and I don't know really where it's coming from. I don't know if I'm nervous. I don't know if I'm scared to continue to keep sharing my story, but I also think that a lot of it is me just being nervous that people in my life are going to get to a point where me talking about myself and my MS is probably going to get old for some people. And I kind of have to let that go because it is what it is. I know for a fact that also after this Selma Blair, which interview came out, which was absolutely phenomenal, I kind of stepped back for a minute and thought, well, why would anyone want to listen to me now? And it was in talking to my best friend who continues to let me know what it is that I'm doing. So my goal in writing the MS 150 first is to continue to create awareness and conversation around what multiple sclerosis really is, how common it is, knowing that this year, twice as many people are being diagnosed as any other year. I mean, that's crazy. Twice as many people are living with MS. MS is not the same for any two people. And what my best friend reminded me of was you have to keep telling your story so that you can keep shining light on what your face looks like, what my experience with MS looks like, what my body is like with MS. From now till about maybe the week before the race in April, I'll be posting one video a week, all talking about my life with MS because, again, I can't speak for anybody else, but I'll be hitting on different topics dealing with me and MS. Today's video is just kind of introductory. Next week's video, I really want to talk about Selma Blair's interview, my reaction to her interview, and how I think that it is important for a lot of us who have MS to continue to share our story. As hard as it is, I know a lot of people have a really hard time talking about it, and I completely respect that. I know for me, the reason I need to know the different faces of MS is because my goal is that when anybody gets diagnosed with MS, that your first 20 minutes aren't spent contemplating suicide, aren't spent swearing off things like marriage and having children and living a long, healthy life. The only thing that I knew of MS when I got diagnosed was the pretty severe form of MS. And imagine if being 28, never spending a night in the hospital, being a full-time fitness instructor, pretty physically active, graduating with a degree in dance. And I can go on, right? Imagine finding that out and thinking, what else am I supposed to do now with myself? All I know how to do is be physical. I figured out last year on the first day of riding the MS 150 why I ride. And I can go on and on and on and on and on about why I ride, but there's two main reasons as to why I ride. I ride because it makes me feel human again. I hadn't been on an outdoor moving bike in years. I teach indoor cycle, and it's completely different. The moment I was able to get on an outdoor moving bike, you feel like you get to live life again. The second reason why I ride is because for me, it literally makes me feel closer to God. And whatever that means for you is what that means for me. It makes me feel closer to the universe. It makes me feel closer to all living things outside. And I had several people ask me if I was going to ride this year, and this is going to be my response from now until I can't ride anymore. I'm going to ride the MS 150 every year until I can no longer ride the MS 150. I first and foremost have to thank the team that I ride with, Blue Line Bike Lab, and so many friends and strangers last year who donated to a GoFundMe page that my friend Jen Zablak from Blue Line Bike Lab made. She was able to raise money for me to get my own brand new 3-wheel recumbent that I rode last year. And if it wasn't for Blue Line, and if it wasn't for so many friends and strangers who donated, I would have never been able to make that happen. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Blue Line, for continuing to do what you do for so many people in the community and for so many people with MS, putting us back on bikes. As of right now, I don't have too much to complain about. I still have a full-time job in fitness. I have a great group of friends and family who love and support me. Believe it or not, if you look up support groups and things like that, articles on people with MS, one of the struggles that people with MS go through is losing friends and losing these relationships because people might not understand or our lives change, right? One day we're exhausted and one day I can go work out with you. I mean, it's just different. And that has always kind of boggled my mind. I've never lost friends due to my illness. I hate saying that because I don't feel ill. Due to my superpower, let's say that. I'm going to call it a superpower because I do believe that people who live with MS live a completely different life. And again, I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for myself. And what I can say is because I don't look sick, that is probably one of the biggest struggles of my life with MS. And because I don't ever want it to be a crutch, it's kind of hard to get people to understand sometimes when you say, I can't really do that. And again, I'll touch on that more in other videos, but I just kind of wanted to give a rundown. Again, 3 years later from being diagnosed, I feel good. I am currently not on any MS meds. Insurance is very tricky when you have a pre-existing condition. And while the meds that I was on offer a financial aid program, to get those meds, you have to see a doctor. And to see that doctor, you have to be covered under a certain type of insurance. So again, later on, I'll go through all of that stuff. But like I said, I feel great right now. And as great as I can feel with MS. Waking up early still sucks. Doesn't matter what time I go to bed. You feel like Frankenstein in the morning, and it's hard to really touch on that unless you know what that feels like physically. Heat still sucks, and I don't mean like, going outside on a hot day. I mean like being in a hot room, um, being in direct sunlight for too long, things start to go numb. And um, I remember for me, it was more of one time I got out of teaching a hot yoga class, and I was just so dehydrated, and I was flushed, and I was dizzy, and I thought, surely I'm not hungover. Like I know I'm not hungover. Um, yeah, I still think that I'm a little wigged out. And I think it's a lot of insecurities because, again, I feel like a lot of people at some point in time might be over it. Like, hey, DK, we get it. You have this. Let's move on. Uh, so, yeah, introductory to me. At the bottom of this video on my post, you'll see a link to my page for the National MS Society should you want to donate. I would appreciate that. And if you don't want to donate, because I understand things happen and lots of people say, well, I don't really know where my money's going. I would rather give you the money. I don't really know where my money's going. I totally understand that. I would totally and completely appreciate a share of this video, because you may not have MS, but someone you might know might have MS or might feel like they have MS. A couple of facts about MS. It is much more common in women than it is in men. Common ages to be diagnosed are anywhere from around 20 to 50, but there is definitely juvenile MS. And in 2017, 48% of people with MS were being misdiagnosed before they got their MS diagnosis. And so to wrap things up, one of the things that I am so blessed with, I can't really give you a specific timeline of when I started to feel my symptoms, but I do know that for 2 months at least leading up to my initial diagnosis, I was completely out of my body. I couldn't see straight. I had insane double vision. I remember driving around Houston with one eye open and I couldn't explain it. I thought I needed glasses. I'd wake up late and I would jump out of the bed and I would just be completely off balance. Then it started with the numbness in my feet. 2 days later, it traveled up into my knees. 2 days later, it traveled up into my thighs. And then 2 days later, it traveled up into my torso. And I remember thinking, I'm going to wake up one day and I'm not going to feel anything. Now this is getting out of whack. I was taking naps that were anywhere from 3 to 4 hours long during the day. And if you would have let me sleep longer, I would have slept longer. My speech, the words that were coming out of my mouth, they weren't coming out the same way I was thinking them. And while I love that people try to have this understanding with you, oh, that happens to me all the time, I'm dying inside because I don't know how to tell you that it's not the same thing. A complete loss of balance. And for me, being a dancer, being able to walk on a stage in the dark and not being able to forward fold over my legs without tipping over. I'll go more into detail in the other videos, but I feel insanely blessed that I went to an emergency room one day and I told them my story, and from start to finish, they believed me. And from start to finish, they had me in an MRI. And from the moment the news was delivered to the moment it was confirmed, I felt totally taken care of. I felt listened to, and I felt seen, and I felt heard. And for that, I am forever grateful. My goal this year is a little higher than it was last year. And I'm shooting for a 3-year anniversary, 1,000 for each year. Again, I'm okay if you choose not to donate, because my first and foremost goal is creating awareness, spreading what MS looks like on different bodies and on different people, and furthering this research and development so that people can live their lives on meds. People can go each year with a yearly MRI. I'm almost 2 years now without an MRI because it's expensive. But I do know that there's such a thing as the emergency room, so if something happens, I'm fine. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. And like I said, next week's video will be on my reaction to Selma Blair's interview. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. And thank you so much for your time. # you can never be too epic.